Okay, there we go. Hello again, everybody. As you know, I am Eli, the computer guy. We're continuing our Tech Office Hours series. Basically, one of the big things is every week I try to have somebody on. Oops, wait a minute. Getting like echo. Oh, I'm such a horrible computer person. Anyways, don't mind that. So every week, one of the things I try to do is get somebody in that's a real technology professional so that they can answer your questions. Again, a lot of people feel that I'm kind of like arrogant and egotistical. All I'm doing is saying what my opinion is. So the idea is we drag in some other people. They explain what their ideas are, and then again, you guys figure out what the hell you want to do in life. So today we have Jacob Haug in, who is the startup founder for something called Level.io, which is a remote desktop solution, I guess. He's here in Asheville, North Carolina. Now, a lot of you know I'm very snarky about startup founders, but again, it is not startup founders. Haug is actually funded. He actually has employees. He actually has a product that's worth a damn. He actually has a very nice resume, to be honest with you. So this isn't like a 21-year-old who just couldn't get a job and got some business cards printed up. So anyways, hello, welcome, Jacob. How are you doing today?
Hey, great to be here. Thanks.
Oh, good. So basically, I figure what we'll do, we'll start out, just so everybody knows, so we'll start out talking about Level.io, then we'll kind of talk about your background, and then whenever we're done with that, we'll let the peanut gallery chime in and be able to ask you some questions, and we'll go from there. So when we talk about Level.io, what is Level.io?
Yeah, Level is a remote management and monitoring tool for small business IT departments, just a way for them to view all of their devices in one centralized place and remotely control them, and as well as manage them behind the scenes. So you can run scripts across hundreds of devices, that kind of thing.
Okay. And so I know we were talking about this like a month or so ago, and we're sitting there talking about a startup company, and you're talking about this in like 2021. This seems like an amazing idea in 2001. Like what is your differentiator? Why get into this market now?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we started as a documentation tool and pivoted to RMM, but I think what makes us different is we're entirely web-based, which a lot of our competitors aren't. Like you have to download this software to your computer in order to manage them. It's kind of tedious. We're focused on small businesses, and then we have a strong focus on security. So we have two-factor auth to get into your devices. Everything's fully encrypted end to end. And we're the first company to have peer-to-peer connections where your browser is directly connected to that device with no level infrastructure between you and that device.
Really? You guys are the only ones to do peer-to-peer?
As far as I know, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So, but like with your background and all that, like where did you guys come up with the idea for doing like remote desktop solution? I mean,
So we had this agent that was, on that could be installed on Windows, Mac, and Linux devices, and we needed a way to enable companies to manage 100 or 1,000 devices as easily as they can manage a single device. And most of the systems out there, like, yeah, you can remote control a single computer, but that's not very helpful if you're an IT guy and you need to install this application or this new patch across 1,000 devices. And there are solutions that cater to that, but we just felt like we could do a better job.
okay. And then what's the roadmap? So right now you can do remote desktop. Can you do like patch management? Like what else can your product do?
Yeah, so right now you have remote desktop. We also have behind the scenes management where you can access the terminal, the file system, processes, service management, that kind of stuff. We're working right now on alerting, which with like automated remediation. So as if a CPU on a device is, above 90% for 15 minutes, generate an alert and run this script. So we're working on that, and then we'll finish the year out with patch management. So by the end of the year, we'll, in my eyes, be a fully fledged RMM.
Oh, okay, that'll be interesting. And then, so what's the price point for this? What are you looking at?
Right now, we're charging $1 a device, which kind of puts us in that team viewer area. I think they charge 134 a device. And as we add some of these more RMM style features, we might go up to $2 or $3 a device, but we want to stay affordable for small businesses.
Okay, I know we were talking about that when we were having tacos or whatever, because that's where you're saying $1 a device. I was like, what the hell? Um, because I actually took a look at it, and I was actually taking a look at TeamViewer and the rest of these, and they were still up at like $20 a device. Is it a volume discount that they're
Right.
giving or something? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. In order to go for their RMM products, if you have more than 20 or 50 devices, it starts to drop down with that volume discount.
Oh, okay. So why are you starting with just $1? Why not start with $10 and then try to work your way down or something?
Yeah, I mean, primarily we want customers. We need money coming in, revenue coming in, and $1 a device is nothing to the businesses that we've been talking to. And we really want you to put all of your devices in levels so that we can, find the bugs, fix the problems. Um, yeah.
No, okay. And now is that because one of the issues you have with startup companies is unfortunately, I don't know, they a lot of times folks don't realize how much money matters, right? And so when you start talking about something like a dollar, like again, for a lot of the noobs out there, when you say $1 per license or whatever, that's like, yay, that's cheap. I'm gonna buy it cheap. But one of the concerns is that actually enough money to stay in business? And do you actually think that that price point scale, like, will that keep you guys funded?
Yeah, I think so. At least for the foreseeable future, we definitely have a three enough funding to get us another few years into the future. And then past that, I think we would consider raising our price as we start to compete with SolarWinds and some of the bigger RMM players. Then we can get into the $3 to $5 a device per month.
Okay, so you kind of get in with at $1, lock people in, and then try to bring the price. Would you bring the price up on your current customers, or just bring the price up on the new people coming in?
No, I don't think we would do that. We would grandfather all of our existing customers in at their pricing that they have now.
Okay. And how do you get trust for people? Because when you're dealing with remote management software, especially with the vendor attacks that have been going on with SolarWinds and all that, you're a new player in the field. How do you get an IT, CIO or CTO to believe if SolarWinds can get the hell hacked out of them? How do you convince them to trust you?
Yeah, I mean, trust is something that's earned over time. It's difficult to just get it day one. We try to be fully transparent. We're transparent with our roadmap. We have a security page that outlines all of the things that we do, both from an engineering perspective as well as how we operate our business. We're working on ISO certifications right now. We're going through third-party pen test. Again, all of these are to reassure customers that we know what we're doing. I think honestly, though, being a new tool is an advantage. You have when you have these legacy code bases that have been around for decades, it's really easy for bugs and problems to emerge.
Okay. And when you talk about things like the ISO certification, so what does that actually mean? Because a lot of people like to throw we're ISO blah blah, and nobody has any idea what you're actually talking about. What does that mean?
Yeah, it's a complicated and expensive process to go through, but it's required if you want to work with the government and healthcare. Certain industries have requirements around it. It's essentially just documentation. It's you have external auditors come in and review that you have procedures when you hire employees and when you fire them, and you remove access as you're supposed to. You have documentation for your accounts. There's Yeah, it's rather tedious, but just thousands of things you have to document, including your infrastructure, your code. Yeah.
Okay. Does that actually relate to your infrastructure that's up and running? So there's documentation, there's HR policies, but then there are your actual servers. How does somebody have confidence that your servers are doing what they're supposed to be doing?
That's also part of the ISO. Like there's a pen test and security test of all the servers. You have to provide network maps, your password like your password policies, how often they're changed, what devices have two-factor authentication, what devices don't. All of that goes into that ISO. It's a complete audit of everything about your company, both financials, technical, operational, everything.
Okay. And then how do you find somebody to do that auditing? Because we have Martin Lehner on the Zoom. He's muted right now, but he does auditing up in Canada. So he's up on the Yukon. That's one of his services. And one of the interesting things that I found is the Canadian government mandates auditing, but they actually don't do a hell of a lot of regulation on the auditors themselves. So when you're going to hire an auditor, how do you figure out who the hell you trust?
Well, I mean, we looked at Clubhouse and a few other large tech companies that operate in a similar space with a similar tech stack and made a decision based on that. But the requirements for ISO and other certifications like that are generally, it has to be a CPA firm that to audit your books. It has to be a technical auditor that's working for them to audit your infrastructure that has certain qualifications and certifications, like it has to be certified ethical hacker, Linux plus, that kind of stuff to work on, to document your Linux infrastructure. You have to document stun, turn, ICE, all of the communication protocols between your servers, what's encrypted, what data at rest is encrypted or not encrypted, and so on. So they do have requirements. It depends on, primarily it's a CPA firm, which requires like a state license in the US. And then the technical person has to have qualifications that can be backed up in a court of law, which I guess is, not very much. Yeah.
So CPA, that's an accounting firm then, right?
Correct. Yep.
Oh.
Only an accounting firm can get you ISO certified.
Really? That's
Yep.
kind of interesting. Oh, okay. Do they subcontract the tech auditing stuff out, or do they actually have that in-house?
No, generally it's outsourced, or yeah, or I haven't met any that retain like a technical team to do audits.
Yeah.
They go based off like third-party pen tests, things like that.
Okay. Cool. So how did you come up with the idea for Level IO? Because I looked at your resume and you have a nice, I don't know, somewhere around like the 20-year resume working in the normal world. What got you to decide to launch a startup company?
Yeah, my passion's building software. That's like what I love doing most. And I've worked as an engineer and a director, VP of software or engineering. For, like you said, the last 15, 20 years, I've worked for Apple, the FBI, hospitals, government agencies, but it's always been my dream to run my own software company. I knew that I didn't want to be like an agency with clients that I had to support, or find. Like I'm a product person. I wanted to be able to obsess over a product and a vision and yeah, build something that I love. And I also knew I didn't want to be a one-man company. I wanted a team of really smart people, and all of that cost money. So it took finding the right investors, the right partners to help fund Level. Yeah, but it's been a 10-year venture getting here.
Oh, wow, 10 years. So with your investors, there's this whole thing where supposedly they're not investing in the product, they're investing in you. Are they actually investing in you, or do they really like the idea of this remote desktop solution?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I think they like the idea of me and the team that I was bringing to the table, but and I guess that turned out to be true because we shifted products, about 6 months into funding. So went from a documentation tool to RMM. So they stuck with us. So I think team does have a lot to do with it, actually.
Oh, interesting. So what was that process like, especially with investors, when you go to them and say, well, this product we had been building, we're going to do this new thing. Was that hard? Was that horrible? Was it just a phone call that it didn't really matter? What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, it came out as we started interviewing companies and talking to prospects. We realized they're just not really excited about a documentation tool and not excited about paying money. And it's really easy when you're in a product to kind of self-validate, like, this is amazing, everybody needs this. But as it turns out, even at Apple and the FBI, none of these companies have solid documentation for complex infrastructure. Or if they do, I bet it's several years out of date. So if that system really were to go down, there would be a lot of problems. But we were just direct with our investors. We explained, it doesn't look like we can get people to be excited to give us money about this product. It's not the sexiest product. And here's our new vision. Here's our new plan. And, are you on board? And luckily they were. But it was like 2 meetings, maybe less than an hour and a half of discussion to pivot. It wasn't that bad.
Okay. I think actually you just brought up maybe inadvertently a big issue in the tech world. A lot of folks don't understand. So you're saying being in the tech world for almost 2 decades, you know how important documentation software should be and that it's not being dealt with. And so you had a product to solve a known valuable problem and nobody cared. Was
Right.
that is
Yeah.
is
I
that a
mean, like
bad
the
sales?
problem is documentation static. And our whole vision was like, let's automate this. Let's install agents on the system that just report in all of the details about what's running on that so that, you can essentially recreate it. We can automatically create network diagrams and communication diagrams and flows. Yeah. Very few companies were excited about it.
Really? Do you think you could have done a better sales job on that, or do you think it's just they don't care and it's too difficult to worry about?
In my experience, I think IT departments have very little budget to spend, and spending it on documentation isn't quite as valuable as spending it on something that can improve efficiency in processes and replace an employee, that kind of thing.
Really? That's hilarious. And so then with your investors, there's the a big concept of to make sure your investors are aligned with the co-founders in the company. Did you interview investors? Like, how did you make sure your investors, you're all more or less on the same wavelength?
Yeah, I mean, we met with several different investors, but in the end, the ones that we went with were the ones that had technical background. They own an MSP in the area. So they understood our vision, our direction, and were willing to support building out software. So they were understanding and supportive of our vision of building this software company to focus on IT and aligned with that direction. So they didn't really necessarily care what we built as long as it was to serve the IT industry.
Okay. And then with the investors, did you go to the investors? Did you have a product before you went to them at all? Or
No.
you just, no?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of discussions about, team and what we were planning and what we thought. But we didn't have any product. We had a good business plan, and that was about it.
That was it. So did you have a full business plan? Because I know I was talking to one investor a couple of years ago, and he was like, "Business plans are out." What did he say? Executive summaries? Like he said everything's going to be decided based off of one stupid ass piece of paper. So if you come in with any more, don't even bother him at least. Like, did you need a business plan for what you were doing, or was it basically one piece of paper with an idea?
I would say it was a series of conversations over the course of several months that probably landed that deal. It probably had very little to do with the business plan.
Right, okay. And then with your investors, especially since they're coming in before you have anything at all, how did you go about deciding how much equity they should get? Did they tell you what they wanted? Did you tell them what you were willing to offer? How did that go?
Yeah, I mean, they told me what they wanted.
Okay, fair enough. Where did you go to make sure that was reasonable? Did you check that against anything, or did you just basically accept it?
Um, yeah, I mean, I knew what was reasonable. I have several friends that have gotten VCs, angel rounds. But yeah, primarily we just went with the investor that we thought we could work the best with, that we had the best relationship with in the end, that we thought could bring the best, the most resources to the table for us as a company.
So are they bringing more to you than just money? Because I know that can be one of the issues. If an investor only brings a check, a lot of people don't understand that might not actually be that valuable. Money's not the only thing. Are they bringing something that's more valuable than money?
Yeah, I mean, we have accounting resources, legal resources, office space, which before pandemic was probably more valuable than post pandemic. And then, of course, financial compensation. They also are technical, so they understand our vision, our direction, and then they're a customer, so they'll beta test all of our products to help us make sure we're solving a problem, which was useful to us to immediately be able to have thousands of devices using our platform.
And then, how long ago did you get your investment to start all this?
October 2019.
2019. So how much longer until you have to go for another big round, do you figure?
Probably August of next year, I would say, maybe December.
Okay. Is that when you need to start, or is that when you need to get a check signed?
Start. Yeah, and I anticipate it would take 6 months. We already have several VCs lined up if we needed more funding, but likely we would be able to get that funding from our current investors.
Oh, interesting. So how do you, there's the thing to ask. How the hell do you get VCs lined up for you? I thought you had to go on bended knee to them.
Turns out once you get a product out, VCs are incredibly interested in your business and you. So yeah, funding is not a huge concern. We're getting lots of VCs reaching out to us to offer money in exchange for equity.
Oh, that's cool. So you are in the Asheville area, somewhere around here, right?
Right. Yep.
So is that for getting investment money, has that been an issue at all? Because a lot of people say like you have to be in the valley, or worst case scenario, Austin, and we're out in the middle of frickin' nowhere. Like, does this affect you for getting investment?
No, it hasn't impacted us at all. In fact, some VCs only target businesses outside of the valley. We haven't had any problems.
Really? Like none? No problems? Oh, okay.
Nope, none.
So, okay. So how do you go about getting your employees? And so how many employees do you have, or do you have
8.
employees? You have 8 employees? Okay.
I mean, counting myself full time.
Yeah. Are they all in the Asheville area, or?
No, my VP of engineering is in the Asheville area with me. Our design director was in the Asheville area, but moved to Charlotte after the pandemic. Um, our senior front end engineers in New York, our senior back end engineers in France, and we're in the process of hiring another person who may be in Poland. So, yeah, we'll see. Yeah, location. We're completely remote now. We started out with the goal of hiring everybody in Asheville, and once COVID hit, yeah, that just wasn't going to be possible anymore.
Oh, okay. So then how does that work when you're hiring foreign employees? Because years ago, I was looking at hiring somebody from Ireland, and my accountant about had a crap fit because I guess there's tax treaties. Like basically, she told me the amount I was going to pay her just to do this guy's taxes probably wasn't going to be worth it. Like how do you go about making sure everything's above board, especially in France, Poland, somewhere else you may be hiring somebody from?
Yeah, so our attorneys wrote up a contract, an employment contract. They're not really employees; they're technically contractors that we pay a set rate per month to. They get paid vacation as well, and paid sick time and all of these things. But they're a contractor. We don't do any U.S. withholdings at all for them, and they just get the full paycheck. And then those contractors are generally, depending on the countries, they deal with whatever their country's rules are. Like in France, he registered himself as a personal entity, and now he can receive money and he pays taxes there. In Poland, I'm not sure what the requirements are, but from a US perspective, we're paying just a contractor. And we pay him like an employee, and he gets vacation like an employee. He's just not an employee. That's how we're doing it.
Oh, that worked. So how did you find somebody like a lawyer or such that understood what needed to be done? Because like I said, I was surprised back in the day how complicated, because everybody thinks, oh, just hire somebody from, and like, there's a lot there. How do you find somebody that knew how to deal with that?
Yeah, it's getting more and more common in the tech world anyway to hire people Brazil and other countries. So most employment lawyers are really familiar with it. I'll admit, when we started the process, our accountant immediately was like, "This is not going to work out." And the law firm that we had on retainer also said, "There's a lot of problems with this." But when we went to a lawyer that specialized in that area, they were able to write an agreement.
No, okay, that's interesting.
And
So
then
my,
also tell the CPA how to,
yeah,
handle taxes and that kind of stuff.
I bet. So do you have any like blacklists or whitelists or allowed and or whatever they want to say anymore about like what countries you will hire from? Like especially dealing with remote management software. Like you probably don't want to be hiring Iranians.
Correct.
Do you know who you do or don't want to hire from? Has that been talked about?
Yeah, right now we require a 5 hour overlap with the US, specifically our time zone EST. So that limits the countries to a degree, unless somebody's willing to get up at like midnight, and start their workday. Outside of that, there's obviously embargoes and rules against some countries, but for the most part, we're taking things on a case by case basis. Like I would be hesitant to hire somebody in Russia. I would be, but again, if we found an excellent developer and they were willing to sign the intellectual property agreements, everything we have goes through code reviews. So not too worried about like things slipping in or slipping through, but we would just case by case basis is how we would consider it.
Yeah. So then how fast do you plan to scale? So if you're at 8 people now, like I don't know, by 2022, are you going to be at 50 or how big do you think you're going to get? How quickly?
We're going to hire one or two more employees, and then we're going to hold tight until we hit at least, profitability, or close to profitability. Like we want to be a business. We're in this for the long haul. We don't want to, keep getting more and more funding and not build a business out of this and have to sell to see a return on the investment.
All right. Are you worried about not scaling quickly enough? I guess that's a big concern, especially in Silicon Valley, that if you don't grow fast enough, somebody else will grow faster than you and kill you that way. You're not concerned about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm concerned about it every day. All of our competitors are, much larger. SolarWinds has hundreds of engineers. So I'm definitely concerned about it. I think, where we can differentiate ourselves is our ability to be agile and pivot quickly because we're small, and also our collaboration abilities of working together on this cohesive vision. It's easier to keep 8 people in line working towards something than it is to keep 100 people.
Yeah. So how do you deal with, so one of the big things in the tech company, really any company, is the idea of culture. And so culture was the big thing all the way up until COVID happened, and now nobody seems to care anymore. Do you care about culture with your, because I think about that, like when you have somebody in France and Poland and Charlotte, like there's the idea of culture that everybody's kind of sort of on the same page as far as certain things go. But in this modern world, is culture as important, or how do you create culture with a remote workforce?
Yeah, I think culture matters, especially when it comes to retaining employees. I think with remote work, it's shifted slightly. Like remote work in itself is a culture. People do enjoy that. I think work-life balance, being able to ensure that your employees aren't working 80 hours a week or 60 hours a week, having a reasonable schedule. We have unlimited vacation time, unlimited sick time. Primarily, we want to retain the people that we have, and it's very hard to be competitive as a startup. Like we do our best to offer a competitive salary, but at the same time, where we can differentiate ourselves is our ability to be accommodating and benefits.
And then how does it work as a manager? Like one of the things I've been horrified. So I'm a Gen Xer, so I've been just horrified by a lot of crap over the past decade as far as employees and bosses go. But oh my God, like in the past 10 years, employees want their bosses to be like everything. You're supposed to be the boss and the priest and a father and a therapist. Like I just see these books nowadays, and it's like it's no longer good enough to be able to make sure everybody gets paid. You're supposed to do all these other things. How how does that work out in like a remote work environment? Like, are you guys just basically they do the work and they get paid? Like, how do you do leadership? How do you do mentorship in this type of world?
Sure. We have daily stand-ups with everyone as a team, right? To talk about what we're going to do that day, any problems we foresee, what we worked on yesterday, where we got stuck. We also have weekly one-on-ones. So I'll meet with every employee every week for 30 minutes to talk about honestly anything they want to talk about, whatever they're working on, what they're excited about, new technologies. And I think all of that is an opportunity to help them.
Interesting. So when you're talking with them when we're doing this, are you using Zoom? Are you using Teams, Slack? Like what communication tools do you guys actually use nowadays?
So we use Basecamp to manage all of our project and our async communication. And then we use VowelL.com for like our video chats and stuff. It's just, it's like basically Zoom, except with transcripts, and it automatically records meetings and shares them with the right people.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. As a startup company, do you have to archive your communications? I think that's a big thing. Like a lot of people don't think about is like for big companies, like with email communications have to be archived and that type of thing. For you, does that have to be done, or are you just doing that because it's a good idea?
It doesn't, I don't think it has to be done. Primarily, we're doing it just because it's really helpful to go back and review and be able to search for like, oh, we were talking about, this alerting feature 6 weeks ago. What did we do? What did we agree to back then? So it's just helpful to be able to have everything written, especially when everyone's remote. As new people join the team, they can automatically see all of that previous communication and know what was going on.
Do they actually read all that stuff?
I mean, if you're working on that ticket, like might, as an engineer, read through the history of the ticket.
Yeah, okay. And then with employees and contractors, so obviously your foreign folks are contractors. How do you decide whether you're going to have an employee or a contractor for a startup like yours?
Everyone in the US for us is employees that we have health insurance and all of that. If they're out of the US, we can't offer health insurance. That's essentially the difference for us. And they're technically a contractor, although we treat them as an employee.
No, okay. Is there a reason you decided to do that? Because again, a lot of startups love to have everybody be contractors so they don't have to worry about, additional HR issues.
Primarily intellectual property agreements, ensuring that the code, first off, our whole team is engineers right now. We don't have any salespeople or anything like that. So it's primarily the level of access these employees have is quite substantial, right? So with every engineer, we have to have intellectual property agreements to ensure that we own the code that they write for our company. And it restricts what that they can't go and work for a competitor or take our ideas to a competitor. And then, like our DevOps guy who has access to all of our infrastructure, it sets certain rules and damages in place to protect the company's liability and risk. This would be difficult to do if they were contractors, is what I'm saying.
No, interesting. So how do you get employees nowadays? Because for coders, apparently it's incredibly hard to get coders. And so for a small startup in the middle of Asheville, North Carolina, how do you convince them that you're the best way to go?
We offer a very competitive salary that's certainly more competitive than the Asheville area. We're right now looking for a Go developer, and our base is 115 to 120. Granted, the industry for that is probably 150 to 160. So we're doing our best to be competitive. We offer equity and profit sharing We don't have profits yet though, so there is that. And then we have unlimited vacation time, unlimited sick time, flexible schedule, all remote, the standard benefits of, a company that's doing their best to be competitive. And we also have a compensation agreement with our employees where we are agreeing to get them within a certain level each year closer to where they deserve to be and should be.
All right. So I think that's a good thing for anybody at home to just recognize there. So you're saying like 115 plus equity.
Correct. Yeah.
Really? So I guess it's no longer the days where you could just give them like 15 bucks an hour in equity and they're happy for the,
Yeah. Not for engineers. No.
not for engineers.
Yeah. And 115 to 120 is considered low for a senior Go engineer. Like I said, market rate would be 150 to 160 plus equity.
Wow.
Like
So
even at
like,
an Apple, right?
yeah. So for like a Go engineer, like when you say senior, how long would they be working in the field to be a senior?
Probably 10 years.
Yeah, okay. No, that's interesting. So do you actually expect to be able to hire somebody in the Asheville area like that, or will that be remote work again? Yeah.
No, it's highly unlikely. Like I would love to, but no, it's highly unlikely.
Okay. And then what's the hiring process like? Because so now, I mean, they're no longer coming to the office sitting in front of you doing 20 interviews with all the different people. Like how do you actually hire people and make sure they're not going to flake out after a week or such?
Yeah, we have a really stringent hiring process because I want to work with smart people that I respect. So our interviews are 4 stages. The first one is just an interview with your direct manager. So it's either myself or our VP of engineering, and we'll just talk tech and get an idea for um, your skill level. Then the next interview is a coding interview where you'll be with do a pair programming assignment with one of our engineers and you'll work collaboratively with them on that. And then third stage will be an interview with me and everyone else on the team. Everyone on the team gets a say and whether we hire that person, which right now that's very easy to do with 8 of us. But yeah, it's essentially lots of little 30-minute meetings with everyone on the team as we get closer to that person that we're hiring.
And how do you find these candidates? Do you literally just go to Indeed and try to find them? Is it people that are recommended to you?
We posted on some remote job boards. We posted on LinkedIn. I don't think we posted on Indeed, but all the remote job boards, all of the programming niche job boards, and LinkedIn, and then as well any recommendations from our current employees and any connections that I'm able to find. We'll certainly interview everyone we can.
Cool. And then one of the things I was wondering about, and so my viewers, there's a lot of question and concern about like activism and companies nowadays, startup companies. And I'm not asking you to get on one side of this or the other. I'm just asking from a manager standpoint. Have Are activist employees like a real thing? Is this something that's just being blown up by TechCrunch because it's what their writers know about? Or like when you're hiring people nowadays, is activism and social justice, is this actually something that you have to consider?
I don't think we've encountered that yet. Like I've read about
Okay.
Basecamp having a lot of problems with activists among their employees, but hasn't been a problem for us yet. Again, 8 people, really small, going to grow to 9, maybe 10. Um, so not yet.
No, yeah, okay. Have you thought about that? About like what your company morally believes in or whatever? Because it's no longer apparently just about your product or whatever you're doing. It's about all these additional things. Have you actually put any time to think about that kind of thing?
Yeah, I remember having a few conversations with our VP of engineering as we were watching things unfold at Basecamp. I think primarily we would discourage any conversation on company channels about politics. Like it's just bound to upset people. And so we just want to avoid that to begin with and focus on, what our mission is.
Fair enough. And so you're in Asheville then. And so I love Asheville. Great beer, wonderful music, nice mountains. Why in God's name would you try a startup here, though? I mean, like, for anybody at home, again, I came from the Baltimore area, and again, trying to do tech education. I figured, oh, I'll come here. But Asheville has its own personality, and it's not hyper tech. Like a lot of tech people are moving in, but the locals here, eh. So why pick Asheville of all places to launch your company?
Yeah, I mean, it primarily was because I was here already, right? Like I lived in Silicon Valley, I worked at Apple, then I moved to Asheville. I was working as a director of software development at a company here, and that's when I started to look for investors and an opportunity to move on. And since I was already living here, it just kind of made sense.
Okay. Did you ever think about moving? Did you ever think like Austin or one of these other places would be a better place for you?
Especially when we get into recruiting. Every time I'm starting to look into that. But luckily now it just doesn't matter with everybody being remote. It doesn't really matter where they are.
Okay. And with your background, I mean, if you were in San Francisco, I mean, I thought that was supposed to be the promised land. Like, why would you leave that?
Uh, I mean, I loved it. I loved working at Apple. I loved doing R&D. It was probably I would have stayed there forever, honestly, but I wanted to start my own company. And, at that time I'd come up with this really great software idea and I went for it. And, as part of that moved back to Asheville, that idea didn't pan out. And so I got a normal job working for a company here, managing software projects and, started again.
No, okay, interesting. And so with Level IO, what's your idea for the future? Do you like what is the exit, or is there an exit? You're going to IPO, you want to get acquired? What are your thoughts?
Um, our goal is not to be acquired. Like I really just want to run a software company. I just want to stay doing what I'm doing now for the next 10 years. I want to build this into a great product. I want to build some additional products, but I just want to have a profitable company. Um, I don't particularly want to sell or have a big exit.
Really? What about your investors? I thought investors all one of these ridiculous home runs, 100x returns or something ridiculous. Do you think your revenue stream will give a 100x return, or they're not looking for that?
I certainly hope they're not looking for that. But at the same time, I think that's why it's important to find investors that align with, your vision and your what you want to do as a company and as a team. And we were very clear at the beginning and all the way till now that we're selling or having a big IPO is not really what we're after.
Okay. Interesting. And so for somebody like you, like where do you go? Because again, like for nowadays, like if you're an employee or if you're a student, there's all kinds of mentorships and advisors. Who knows how good they actually are, but there are people that you can go to. Like when you're creating a startup company, who do you go to for advice to figure out what you should do?
Everyone that will meet with me. I mean, the chamber here has some programs. They have Venture Asheville and Elevate. Then there's the Asheville Angels, which is like an investment fund here. Meet the Geeks. I've gone to every single place and pulled every connection that I had from friends at Apple. Here my idea. Do you think this is good? What should I change? Here's my product. Do you think, so just constant validation. We interviewed hundreds of companies, small businesses that were our target market to get feedback from IT directors. Is this something you want? Is this something you would pay for? Um, so we did everything we could do to validate the product before we spent time building it.
Okay. And when you talk about like Asheville Ventures and all that, is that a good quality thing? Like one of the problems that I see nowadays is like accelerators and advice and mentorship. It's become its own ridiculous little industry. And so a lot of times you have people that have no place giving anybody advice, and they're given fancy titles and giving advice. How do you find the folks around here? Are they up to snuff for being able to tell you what's going on?
Surprisingly, the people that are part of Venture Asheville are actually exceptional. They all come from very impressive backgrounds. On our mentor team alone, we have people from IBM, like a former VP from IBM. We have a banking executive on our team. So, they have provided us with resources in areas that we need help and advice, and then they don't take any equity and they don't take any money or in exchange for this advice. So I like unbiased feedback, I guess, and they're able to provide that as like a free resource to us.
Oh, that's interesting. Why do you think they came here? Like, what's the impetus to come into a, I don't know, North Carolina, mountain town? Why do you think they showed up?
Most of them are retired executives. So they, I guess the mountains is where they want to retire.
Yeah, okay, fair enough, fair enough. So then, what is your background before all this? So again, I took a look at your resume, and it goes back to the early 2000s. So like, how did you get into tech? Like, what's your education, that type of thing?
Yeah, I have an associate degree in web technologies, a bachelor's in information systems, and and most of the way through a master's degree. But primarily, school was not where I learned those things. It's just a validation piece of paper that was needed to work at Apple or work for the FBI. I've always been into tech. I started as a kid programming and writing code and taking apart computers and playing with them. It's just what I love. So it's how I spent all my time. And then I would quickly, build websites and all sorts of, companies over the past. I started like a web design magazine and built that up, and a hosting company. And so I could learn about servers and play with servers. And it just it was all just little hobby projects that, gave me lots of education. And then, I went and worked for some bigger companies and learned a lot more. So I guess it's just real world hands-on experience is how I learned less, from school.
Okay. So were you in California? Is that where you were born then? And you just went
No,
over to
I was born
California?
in Candler, which is like
Oh, Asheville.
15 minutes from Asheville. So yeah, really close. Lived here until I was 18, and then I moved.
Okay. So you moved to the Valley then?
Yeah.
Did you go for a job? Were you already offered a job, or did you just
Yeah,
wing it?
I moved there to take the job for Apple.
Really? Okay, so that's one of the things. Like everybody in the world working for the FANG companies. Like how were you so impressive that you were able to get pulled all the way to California for Apple?
Um, I participated in a cyber defense competition at AB Tech, and I placed third in the nation. So I went all the way to their nationals, and yeah, that was pretty much how I got recruited for lots of jobs within the government and corporate world.
Really?
So
That's
just
cool.
a fluke, I guess. Got lucky. Yeah.
Fair enough. Then if you were there and you were working for Apple, why would you ever leave Apple? I thought that was the greatest job in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. I learned a lot. It certainly was where I thought I would stay my whole career, but I built this software. We had this. I figured out this problem. With at Apple, every job application, every job opening got between 10 and 15,000 applicants. So I wrote some code to filter through these applicants and find the best. That code, it turned out that an executive search firm here was interested in purchasing that code and hiring me to run their software division. So I left Apple to go and work at an executive search firm uh, for a few years, 5 years,
Okay.
6 years. Yeah.
So if you were doing that, kind of curious with your startup company and all your contracts, if you were writing that on Apple's time, was that your code or Apple's code?
It's a great question. Apple has some of the best intellectual property agreements ever. I actually had to get a VP exception to write code that was not owned by Apple,
Oh,
and I
so
and I
so
did that for that project.
oh,
So
interesting. So you knew it would be valuable outside of Apple? Like why would they allow? That sounds like a good idea. That genuinely sounds like a no-brainer idea. Why would they even allow that?
The contract that I signed said as long as it doesn't directly compete with Apple or their business or their intended business, then I was free to do it. So, an algorithm to filter through resumes wasn't exactly, competing with Apple in any way, right? They're products company. So.
Yeah. Well, they were. Now they're into all. You see, that's one of the reasons I wonder is just with all the AI and all the weird stuff that they're doing nowadays. I'm surprised they would let that kind of thing walk out the door.
Yeah. At the time, it wasn't that big of a deal.
Okay, fair enough. And then when you got there, I mean, you're talking. I think that's the interesting thing, right? So there's 10 to 15,000 applicants for every job. So you come from North Carolina to work at Apple. Did you have imposter syndrome? Like when you walked in the door, did you feel like you deserved to be there?
Yeah, I definitely had it every day. Like, I remember very distinctly feeling like, oh man, I am not good enough. Like everybody here is the best in the world at what they do. And it's really easy to feel intimidated. Um, yeah.
No, okay. Now that you have a few years down the pike, do you feel that you were, high quality for being there, or do you still feel like, oh my golly, I can't believe I was there?
I could definitely do better now.
Definitely do better. Fair enough.
But I think it's really easy to look at what you're doing and feel like you don't belong. Like everyone around me was the best at what they were doing. They were the top expert in the world. They wrote the programming language. So it was really easy to feel intimidated, but that's how you learn. If you can surround yourself with people that are better than you and smarter than you can level up very quickly. And that's what Apple likes to do.
Yeah. Oh, cool, cool. And then you keep talking about working for the FBI. What were you doing with them?
I've consulted with them for the last 6 or 7 years. Anytime there was a cyber hack or anything like that, they would bring in a few consultants to help.
Okay. Was that just a random thing? Did they come to you, or did you apply for a job? Or
My boss at Apple actually said, "Hey, you should go and work with the FBI. I have this sweet contract with them." And yeah, so it was kind of a fluke. He was doing it, so he got me in, and yeah.
oh, okay, interesting. Well, I think one of the interesting things. So a lot of my viewers, it's whatever's in the news. So cybersecurity is in the news. Everybody either wants to be a hacker or a cybersecurity expert. They all hacker, 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 cyber. So what's kind of interesting is you're talking about you went out of AB Tech and you placed a cybersecurity competition. You were working for the FBI, and now you're coding a remote desktop solution. Is cybersecurity not as cool as people think it is? Like, I don't think a lot of the viewers would think they would go down that track if they had your career.
Yeah, I mean, I love software. That's what I like doing. And I love security too. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm good at software. I'm able to, like ensure that we're thinking about security at every step. And I think you would rather someone building an RMM product that has a strong focus on security than not.
That will be true. That'll be true. And then I know when I was talking with you, so you actually are like a board member of a couple of nonprofits or an advisor or such. Is there a professional value in you doing that, or is that just giving back to the community?
Yeah, I think I get to see a lot of different problems from effort that businesses are going through, and I'm able to either avoid them myself, um, which is always helpful. But I'm finding I learn more from them than I'm sure they learn from me. So it's just I look at every board spot as just an opportunity to help share the technical knowledge that I have, but absorb as much of the sales and marketing and business and the knowledge as those are my weaker areas. So I use it as just a learning opportunity.
Ah, fair enough. And then with AB Tech and like education in an area like this, so I've talked with locals, and a lot of people don't seem overly impressed with A/B Tech as far as their technical programs are concerned. Do you feel that A/B Tech is better than they're giving it credit for, or was it your go-gettedness that allowed you to go much farther than the education that you were given?
It certainly was not A/B Tech. I I remember going through like intro to programming and talking to the professor and was like, hey, can I just write this application and just, can that count for the class? And he was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Wrote it, and then I didn't go to class for the rest of the semester. So I remember distinctly just sitting through most of my classes at A/B Tech to get the credit to move on to get the degree. Um, I don't know if that like it was just boring to me. Like I already knew that the topics and the areas, and I found that most of the time they were 5 to 10 years behind industry standards. So it was kind of frustrating for me too.
Okay. Is that just an A/B Tech thing, or is that like if you went to a better university, do you think you would have had a better time with education, or is just all college education probably a few years behind?
I mean, when I was at Apple, I went to Stanford. They paid for it. That was a similar experience there as well.
Really? So you're saying like, and that's just amusing to hear, like that Stanford would be similar to A/B Tech, but yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say on the same level of as A/B Tech, but similarly dated, five to at least 5 years behind what corporate world is doing.
Oh, interesting. And then, so with the competition, that cybersecurity competition that you got into, was that put on by A/B Tech? Like, so if somebody here is going to some crappy college and they're trying to find that type of thing to do, like, how did you find that? Who was that put on by? How did you get involved with that?
Uh, it was the Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition, CCDC. It's made up of universities all over the US. So John Hopkins, MIT, every university that's, or even wannabe universities like A/B Tech will participate. They send their best talent to participate in these competitions. There's a regional round and then, like a national round.
Okay. Did you just apply, give your $10 to get into it, and that's basically how you
Yeah,
got
I
in?
mean, yeah, I didn't have to pay for it. I just told my professor, like, hey, I want to participate. Will you sign this? And he was like, yeah, sure, go for it.
Correct.
Yeah.
So where, like, so if you placed third nationally, like, how did you get support to do that? I mean, were you just that darn smart, or like, how did you get trained up to that level?
Um, when I was 15, 16, I was working for a web design magazine that was ran by one of the VPs at Google. And so I learned a lot from him. And then I started a hosting company because I thought that would be a really good idea. And I learned a lot about servers, and kind of all of these skills helped prepare me for that cyber defense competition.
Interesting. So if you're working for a webzine when you're like 15 or 16, so that's around here. How did you get that job then?
It
That sounds
wasn't
interesting.
really around here. It was all remote back before all remote was cool.
Okay.
Yeah,
How did you get on their radar or whatever? Because again, I have teenagers that are watching this, and that sounds like a very
sure.
interesting
Yeah, I was
opportunity.
just answering all the questions that I possibly could on the forum until like the admins noticed me. So nowadays that would be like Stack Overflow. You would be like crushing it on Stack Overflow, answering all of the questions. And I imagine it's probably a little bit harder now to get noticed. There's a lot of people on Stack Overflow.
Fair enough. And so, okay, so with Level IO, because a lot of people want to know, what is the programming language they should learn? Like, what are the top languages that something like Level IO requires? I mean, there must be quite a few languages to make that thing work.
Yeah, on the front end, we're all JavaScript. So we use React, which is a popular JavaScript framework. On the back end, our API is written in Ruby on Rails, which
Yeah.
is, obviously really popular. And then our agent, which is cross-platform, runs on Mac, Windows, and Linux. That's written in Go.
No, okay, interesting. So Ruby, I thought Ruby stopped being cool a couple of years ago because I know back in like 2013, Ruby, but it's been a while since Ruby has seemed that cool. Why would you go with Ruby nowadays?
It's just really, really stable, and it's very easy to scale. And so we have, hundreds of thousands of devices checking in. And yeah, it's very, very stable and fast at processing and handling those requests. And that's what we're looking for. We don't want to constantly be fixing bugs or issues or worried about any of the scaling stuff. But I'm sure we could have done equally as well with any of the other backend frameworks, whether it's Laravel, which is PHP based, or Django for Python. It doesn't really matter. Any API framework would have been sufficient.
Okay. And then also in the tech world now, I tell everybody when they want to get into tech to do coding. So like with what you're doing, do you care about the hardware? Like, do you actually worry about power supplies failing? Do you have load balancing on hardware, or is this all cloud at this point for you?
Like, are you talking about our infrastructure or?
Yeah, for like what you're doing. Like, do you have a cluster of physical servers sitting somewhere that you have to worry about swapping hard drives for?
No, 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 no. It's all virtual, all in the cloud. We have hundreds of servers we manage, but they scale up and scale down automatically.
Okay. Is that, do you think you would ever get to a size where you'd start worrying about physical hardware, or is in the modern world you just put it the best place is the cloud regardless?
I mean, even if we were going to like co-locate and like have physical servers, likely we would just install like vSphere or something. We would buy a rack of servers, which we wouldn't even touch, right? The data center would install, rack and mount those servers, and then our hypervisor would take over, and then we would just automatically run our Ansible scripts, which would create all the virtual machines, and we'd be in another data center. So even if we decided to go the physical route, we're not going to be managing hard drives or hardware.
Oh, yeah, cool deal, cool deal. Okay, so I think that was good. That was our first little hour here. So we will open this up to the viewers. We've got I don't know, I got like 6 or 7 people in the meeting. So I'm going to allow people to unmute themselves in a second. Let's hope this doesn't go horribly. So whoever wants to ask a question of Jacob, you should now be able to unmute yourself, say something, ask a question. Also, Jacob's level.io, there is a link for his product down below. It's a 14-day free trial, as I recall currently. Plus, it's only $1. And again, I still think that's a ridiculous price. It's $1 a month per client, which I guess. So that's there. You probably want to try to test that out, play with that. And also for this, again, I'm now using Meetup in order to try to schedule these events and make it a little bit easier. So if you want to be part of Meetups going forward, there's another link down there. You can click on that, become part of the Meetup. So anybody want to unmute themselves and ask a question? Martin Lehner, come on, you have to have a question. This is always the hard part.
Oh, hello.
Hello, Matt.
Yes, Mr. Eli, Mr. Jacob, I would have a question for both of you. What are your opinion on AWS certification for solution architect? Is that some woo-woo flashy job title, or is it actually legit?
I love the AWS Solutions Architect cert. It's really good. I'm a big fan. If they're running AWS, if the company you want to go after is running AWS, which likely they probably are.
Yeah, I think that's what I always say is, what the hell is your company running? I mean, if your company's running Azure, then don't get AWS certified. But you think it's a valuable certification right now?
Yeah, I do. It definitely proves that you know how to create infrastructure, create VPCs, secure them. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think it's valuable if you don't have experience? Because I know that was a problem back in the day with MCSEs. Like after I went through boot camp for MCSE, and I was like, why is this so hard? And then I found out you weren't supposed to get an MCSE until you had 5 years experience. And so I see that with a lot of people now. They're like, I want to be an AWS architect. And I'm like, okay, what have you done? I built one website. Like, do you think it's valuable if they don't have any experience in the field?
probably going to be really tough to get, right? Like to handle creating the VPCs with auto scaling policies, load balancers, Route 53 DNS, and S3. You're learning like a lot of different areas of computer science very quickly, and each of them, like VPCs and networking, that's a specialty on its own. DNS is a skill set on its own. So I think a lot of these build on top of each other, and it likely would take several years to be able to earn that cert, or dedicated studying like you did for the MCSE.
Fair enough. Okay, so Martin now has his hand up. Martin Lehner, unmute yourself. Oh, come on, Martin, you have your hand up. Oh, the quirks of running these things. Oh, we got somebody. Okay, somebody else unmute yourself, since Martin doesn't know what he's doing. Matthew, what's going on?
Hey, what's up, man? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey, Jacob, I was kind of curious, so you said you only have a number of contractors currently with you right now. What size is your team, you said?
We have 8 employees, but I guess, yeah, technically 2 of them are contractors. The rest are full-time employees.
Do you have like a dedicated like quality assurance over there, or is it just everybody kind of does their unit testing? It's just, or what's your thoughts on quality assurance? Like,
yeah, our DevOps guy runs like SQA sweeps for us weekly. And that's about as far as we've gotten into SQA. Like we have automated integration test and unit test on our platform. We rely on code as much as we can to test things, but outside of that, we do manual regression testing. Just one person.
Yeah, it's kind of like that's my profession. So I was kind of interested in how you're handling that with your team.
So what is SQA for for the people at home? I know what it is, but no. What is
software
SQA?
Quality assurance?
Oh, okay, that's cool. Is there a set standard way of doing that? There's a set testing process for that?
Yeah, they make like matrix spreadsheets, and it outlines like every single feature, like can log into app, can reset password, can remote control device. It's just a list of the functionality, and they'll do an SQA sweep of everything. But what most companies are trying to do is automate that. They'll use like Selenium or a headless Chrome instance, and it will go through and automatically log in and log out and reset the password and remote control a device, and JavaScript kind of does these actions. It's really cool to watch. You'll see the computer just moving around doing stuff, and that's it going through the unit test.
Okay, cool. Okay, so next person to unmute themselves. Who would like to ask a question? Kareem, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going, Eli? How's it going, Jacob? Got a question that you touched on that seems to be very relevant, especially what I'm seeing now with certifications. At what point do we actually start saying the actual hands-on training, any self-taught training you have, if you happen to go to, say, a research development university or whatever that actually is doing some industry standard stuff, at what point do we actually start going to get where you are? You develop the application and all these different things. You have to actually have some experience in the field. It's not this magic where it's going to come out of thin air. And that seems to be something I'm noticing a lot. Everything now, the magic is if you get this certification, magically they'll get to where you are. Sometimes it almost feels like they're telling them all the way down to the venture capitalist money, they'll get that too. What do we need to do in the industry to help kind of change that right now?
That's a tough question. I guess I agree. I don't know that you're going to get everything from education or certifications. I think a lot of it does come from that real world experience, and that's something that employers look at as they look at your resume. Is have you done? Is there a standard progression in your career where you're consistently going from a junior developer to a senior developer, mid-level to senior developer to a manager? Is there that career progression? Is that real world experience there? Yeah, I don't know that I have more advice than that. Eli, do you have anything to add there?
No, it's Kareem likes to ask a lot of these philosophical questions. Yeah, I'm not really sure what the where that's gonna go. So,
Can I
do you have any-
ask
yeah, yep, oh, that's it. Okay. Here, I'm gonna unmute Martin. Apparently, he says he was not able to unmute himself. So, can I? Oops. How do I unmute? Ask to unmute. More. Ask to unmute. Okay. Trying to figure out my own system here. Chat, ask to start video.
Can I slide in a technical question while we wait?
Sure.
Sure. Yeah.
Basically, to get the application, like I come from a computer science background. I'm accustomed to having a blank slate. What can you do to get trained so you can start from that blank slate? Like, not using a jump page, like that. I mean, they're useful tools, but what can you do, or where can you start so you can get that blank slate and start, coding from there?
Yeah, I think unfortunately you have to find that entry level job that will let you that will teach you, and you have mentors and you have senior developers above you that can teach you the process of like pull request and how code reviews work and what are the most important things that you can identify in code reviews. And yeah, I think it just comes from that experience of being on a team that has standards, and that's only going to come if you can get a role as a junior developer somewhere.
So I'm trying to deal with some troubleshooting with Martin Lehner. His thing won't unmute. Okay, if that's it from Kareem, I don't know what's going to happen with Martin. Anybody else? Who else has a question? Oops, I hear a click. Matthew Carter, come on. Benjamin Connor, do you have a question? Everybody's away from keyboard right now. So out of curiosity, what's the most interesting thing going on in technology right now? Like, what are you actually excited about in the tech world?
I don't know if I'm excited for it, but Windows 11's, something I'm looking into. But yeah, let's see what else. I don't know. That's all I got.
That is the modern. See, this is what concerns me about all these people coming in the tech field. It's like, so doing this stuff for 20 some odd years, like every year people were excited. It was like, oh, you go from desktops to laptops, you go from dial up to fast, you go to mobile. For like 20 years, it was always like, I want the next thing. And it is weird. We have finally gotten to the place where everybody's like, nah, I'm good. I'm fine.
Yeah, I mean, like AR is cool. I don't know that there's, much going to happen there in the next year or two, but I'm excited to see it. Machine learning, AI, I think those are like buzzwords, but like I guess there are some good AIs like AlphaGo and stuff. But yeah, I mean, primarily I think we're a bit away from anything happening. VS Code's like code along thing is pretty cool, where it writes code for you. I guess that's GitHub's, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. I haven't played around with it, but it shows a lot of potential.
Cool. Okay, so Martin Lehner, can you unmute yourself now?
I can.
There you go.
So, bit of a question on the platform, because it's super interesting for sure. Are you guys HIPAA compliant?
Great question. Technically, we are HIPAA compliant, but we have not been third-party certified for that, which is not required. But if you need a third-party, agreement saying that we are HIPAA compliant, we don't have that yet. Something we're working on.
Okay, no, great to know. It's, I mean, I'll just make a note. It's, I mean, I've looked at lots of RMM solutions over the years, and a lot of RMM solutions and those kind of platforms, they don't have an integrated screen sharing, screen control option. Most of them integrates either a third party or don't have it at all, and you have to come up with your own. So that was super cool to be able to see that. So definitely of interest.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, generally they integrate with Splashtop or AnyDesk or TeamViewer or some other remote control product.
So with that, did you build that from scratch, or did you grab some open source product and highly modify it?
We started down the open source product and highly modify it. We started with Apache's like Guacamole. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that. It did not meet our expectations of quality and latency requirements. So we ended up doing our own solution for that. We use FFmpeg behind the scenes to stream the desktop over a WebRTC channel, peer-to-peer direct to the browser.
Huh, that's interesting. So how did you guys figure that out? Did you have an expert in remote desktop, or did you just sit there and plug away for a year trying to figure out how to do it?
Yeah, we sat there for a year trying to figure out how to do it. There was a lot of times where we weren't even sure that we could send the desktop over a WebRTC channel. Like the video channels were just released a couple years ago. So to send like a desktop, especially if it's a 4K or a 5K monitor over, a web channel and worrying about bandwidth requirements, there was a lot of concerns whether it was feasible, but luckily it turned out that it was.
So is this a product that you might sell? Would you license out your underlying technology to somebody else possibly?
We've had several discussions. There's a couple companies that are interested in licensing it. So it's something we might do. We've talked about it.
Yeah, okay. That's interesting. Have you thought about that as a business model? Kind of like with the with like the codec companies, or ARM, where you basically just come up with the technology and then let somebody else figure out how to make a business out of it?
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially like they want to white label the product or take our product and put it inside of their product. If we get desperate for money, we might consider that. But right now we're hoping we can build a business around it.
Yeah, all right, fair enough. Anybody else have a question? Any more questions? There is also the Zoom link. If you're watching this on YouTube, under the meetup link, there's a Zoom link so you can join this meeting if you want to ask a question. Anybody have some more questions here?
Hey, Jacob, I just have one more question.
Sure.
Hey, have y'all shown any interest, or is there anything plans for the future, like your personal interest as far as like IoT secure solutions, or kind of see where that industry is kind of going as far as security? Or is that something just way off in the future? It's kind of like how augmented reality is.
It's funny that you mentioned that. We're planning on next year working on IoT support within Level so that you can remotely manage like switches and routers and IP cameras and refrigerators, whatever IoT devices there are. So yeah, we're working on that and hope to have it early next year.
So one of the things with that is, like, I think we talked about this before. I mean, basically, you're creating really good remote desktop software. And, depending on how you look at that, that could also be really awesome, like a RAT, basically a remote access tool. So when you're just putting this crap out on the internet and anybody can swipe a credit card to use it, how do you know they're administering the right Nest thermostat? Or the right?
Honestly, it's something I think about all the time because it would be a very good remote access tool or command and control console, especially when you have like bulk scripting across all of your devices. Right now, we require a credit card, which is more than a lot of our competitors do, right? In this space, there's a 30-day free trial with one of our competitors, no credit card required, and they were recently used as a remote access tool during that 30-day trial. I also talk with every single business that signs up just to make sure that they are really a business. Like, we are a tool to help you manage 100 or 1,000 computers as easily as one. And so you need to have a real business with a real justification to use us. So right now we're just doing manual validation of everyone that signs up.
So is there something for the business world? Because, online, everybody wants to be anonymous, and that's its own argument, right? But in the business world, you actually don't want everybody to be anonymous. You want to know who the hell you're actually doing business with. Is there any kind of service that you can pay for to try to validate who is doing business with you is who they say they are, any type of thing like that?
I'm sure there are. We're not using any of them yet. I know Stripe has some verification built into the platform if you pay extra for that. But yeah, not that I know of. I haven't looked into it, but I'm sure there's probably a company doing that, like background checks for companies kind of thing.
And then with that too, so there's lots of different insurances. So a lot of people, when they create a business, they know about general liability insurance. But then if you're a consultant, there's errors and omissions insurance and all kinds of different insurances. Do you have any special insurance for what you do? Is there any like special add-ons that you've had to have to try to secure the business in case somebody does something stupid?
Yeah, we have all of the standard liability insurance plus a cybersecurity policy that's designed for like software manufacturers, people that develop software.
Okay. So if somebody used your software incorrectly, that insurance would kick in, or if the software just failed, like if I was trying to remote control into a device and it failed at the inopportune time, is that what the insurance covers?
Correct. Yeah, it's like you suing us because our software didn't work and it caused you a loss of business revenue kind of thing. Covers some types of hacking. It covers a few things. There's some stipulations, like we have to do so many pen tests per year and things like that to keep that insurance policy.
Now, are you guys actually liable if your software fails? Because I thought that was one of the big problems of the software industry. So it was either the late 80s or the early 90s. Congress decided that they really wanted to push the software industry. So basically, they removed a hell of a lot of liability from you folks and then never put it back. Can you actually be sued if your product fails, even if they're paying for it?
I mean, I guess people can sue for anything they want to sue. It's, whether they win, I'm not sure. We do have, terms and conditions and privacy policies and a public status page with uptime metrics. But I mean, people are kind of sue happy nowadays. So they could sue for anything. I'm not sure if they would be successful or not.
Fair enough. Okay, anybody have some questions? I'll put a link to the Zoom and the chat stream if anybody wants to join. Have a couple of questions. Come on, I have a real founder here. He's got the money, he's got the product, he's got the experience. He worked for Apple. You guys are a quiet crowd today. So okay, nobody's coming on. So what do you since you worked for Apple, what do you think about this whole CSAM thing that's going on with Apple, where they're going to have your device basically narc on you, theoretically? How do you feel about that as a cybersecurity person and all that?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of how it was released or of the software. Yeah, I'm glad I'm not there to be a part of that.
Do you think it's a good idea with bad PR, or do you think it's a bad idea from the get-go?
I think it's a bad idea from the get-go, right? Like I feel the same with like adding a backdoor for the FBI, which is pretty much what they were suing Apple for, is that backdoor. Anytime you add a backdoor, or it's going to be used by bad people as well. It's a door. Yeah, I'm not a fan of anything that's scanning all of the content on my phone, looking for something nefarious or malicious, especially when there's going to be inevitably false positives.
Yeah. And so, I mean, being in your position, having worked for Apple, done cybersecurity, doing a web app, it seems so weird that they're doing it because I mean, they've been arguing for like 10 years. They're not Facebook. Your data is your data. Like
Yeah, they're
they
the
haven't even.
privacy company.
Yeah. So is there something going on politically or legally that we may not realize? Do you think that pushed them into doing this kind of thing?
Yeah, I feel like maybe there's some pressure. There's some reason that they're doing it, and I don't know why. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, this has been a good conversation. Does anybody else have any other questions? I've run through all of my questions here. Anybody else have any questions?
Am I audible?
Matt.
Hello?
Oh, there we go. AK,
Hey.
yes. What's your question?
Yes. So just trying to understand the job market there. So I was looking at that job posting for the Go developer on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
And as per the Indian currency, that is a very, very good salary. And I was expecting that you must be bombarded by Indian developers. But no, as I can see, only 2 applicants are there in last 15 days. So I'm surprised. What is the challenge there? Are you not getting applicants, or what is the actual challenge there?
Yeah, most of our applicants are definitely going to be overseas because 120,000 is a great salary in Brazil or India. It's honestly a great salary in the US, but developers are valued way higher than that in the US. But we're not getting that many applicants from LinkedIn. I think we paid like $350 to post that job post, and we've gotten maybe 15 applicants total. I don't know how many of the 15 from LinkedIn have been from India. I think most of our job applicants come from We Work Remotely, which is where one of the tech job boards that we posted on. But yeah, if you're a Go programmer, please apply. We do not care if you live in India. We just want
My
great,
bad, I am
talented people.
my bad, I'm a Python developer, so I can't help with Go.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Yeah.
So that's because I thought you were saying that you wanted people within like a 5-hour range. Is that unless you can't find somebody that you need, so you'll go to India or such, or?
I mean, we're pretty set on the 5-hour overlap, so they would have to be willing to work that, which I don't know what time zone India's on, or if that's even feasible for them to work and overlap with EST. But if it is, we would consider an applicant from India, I think.
Oh, that's an interesting. I wasn't really thinking about it. I was just assuming that they were too far. But if they were willing to work during their nights, you
Yeah.
would be fine with that then.
Yeah, I mean, even if they were willing to work with just like a little overlap, like a 4-hour overlap into EST, that way, at least 4 hours of the day, I can have meetings and the entire team can be present. If something needs to be reviewed, I can get somebody to review it. Like where it becomes a problem is like, I don't know the answer until the next day, or, next time this person works, and then I have to wait 24 hours after that. If I have a follow-up question, that's where it becomes a problem.
And then I'm surprised you were saying that with LinkedIn. I would have thought LinkedIn would be amazing for getting applicants, but you're saying 15 for $100,000.
Yeah, and honestly, most of them are not qualified applicants. We had the same with Indeed like a long time ago. So I've stopped entirely posting on Indeed, but I was hoping for better results from LinkedIn, but no.
So why do you go with recruiters, or do you go with recruiters?
Recruiters take like 15 to 30% fee. So we can't afford that. I'd rather give that direct to the employee and just pay them that much more.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, we have a few people that have joined the call. So if somebody wants to ask a question, unmute yourself and ask a question.
I'm just going to throw out a comment while someone unmutes themselves. I mean, we're in the same boat when we put out a job ad, exact same thing. We don't get a lot of applicants. It's definitely hard to find somebody who's qualified. That's for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Curious. Okay, Joshua Lacey, you unmuted yourself?
How you doing? Eli, what's going on, guys? How y'all doing? So I kind of missed the beginning of the conversation, but I did want to ask, and I'm not sure if you already covered this, but as far as like job requirements, like what type of requirements are you actually looking for? And the reason I ask that, because I'm assuming the positions that you're advertising or mostly programming positions. So it's like not a lot of certifications out here are like industry standard certifications like CompTIA or Cisco. You know, I mean, you either know the code or you don't, and you could probably have a possible GitHub with some examples of things that you've created as a programmer. So I was just curious as to what requirements for the positions.
Sure. Yeah, I think it varies depending on the position. Right now we have a senior Go developer. And for that, we're looking for somebody that has 10 years programming experience, not necessarily with Go, but, you know, some low level programming language like C, C#, Go, you know, something, Java, any programming language would be sufficient. If you have a good understanding of multiple programming languages, you'll likely be able to pick up Go very quickly. For our front end positions, we would be looking for React. You know, yeah, we love it if our applicant has a GitHub so we can look through previous code. Otherwise, we'll just ask you for some code samples. If you don't have any code samples, we do a homework assignment where we just give you a small programming test, and, you know, shouldn't take more than a couple hours, and you complete that. And then we can use that as our baseline to determine your coding abilities. But you're right, there's no real certifications for programmers like there are in the networking and cybersecurity world. I don't know why. That's a great question.
Yeah, thank you. So do you guys also require, I don't know, I know a lot of companies are kind of going away from, it seems like it to me, they're going away from degrees, and certifications are more you know, put in the forefront. As far as like, for instance, I guess the degree would kind of go into like a senior management level, you know, if you have that. So I'm kind of forgetting what question I was going to ask you.
That's okay. I think I can answer where you were headed. Like, we don't require a degree for any of our positions. Like we want to hire the best people, whether they have a degree or not. And we determine whether you're the right fit based on your knowledge. So the only way we can really assess your knowledge is by talking to you and having a conversation and doing like a pair programming assignment. And so we've shifted everything toward that. Like education, early on, I said, you know, most colleges and universities are about 5 years behind industry standards. So yeah, I don't care if you have a degree. I care if you can do the job, and that's what we're trying to screen for and find in our applicants.
Okay, well, I have one more question, and I'll lead it to other people. So it looks as though, because I clicked on the link and looked at your company, and I was just wondering if you guys also offer, I guess, the application towards Linux systems. Now, I know that's not used in in the corporate environments that often or that much, you know what I'm saying? It's there as far as servers go, but is there an option for that? Because I didn't see it on the site, so that's why I'm asking.
Are you asking if our application supports Linux?
Yes, basically.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Level runs on Windows, Mac, and Linux devices.
Okay,
we support Red Hat and Debian distros. Yeah, pretty much everything.
Okay, cool. I didn't see it. I apologize. If
no problem.
You probably already asked that or something. And by the way, I'm not looking for a job. I'm already, like, I already have a position. I do my own little videos or whatever where I try to help people get into the IT field. So that's mainly why I want to ask those questions for people in the audience that may be, you know, struggling trying to get positions. So not to take over your show, Eli. Salute to you, man.
Fair enough. Cool. Okay. I guess that's one of the questions with Linux. So it works on Mac, Windows, and Linux. What about the mobile OSs? Does it work on Android, iOS, that type of thing?
Not yet. And probably not next year either. Like it's on our roadmap. It's just getting really fuzzy when you get that far out. It's probably 2 or 3 years away.
Really? Is it that much? I mean, considering you guys literally built this thing from scratch, is it really that much more difficult to deal with the mobile devices? Or
Yeah, we decided to go toward IoT devices and supporting, routers and switches so that all of your IT infrastructure can be in one place for you to manage. And so we're spending a lot of time on those IoT level devices.
no? Okay, fair enough. All right, so we've had a few more people show up. We have the curious noob, Don Man.
Quick
Anybody-
question, actually, on the product roadmap, under coming up next, it says easily manage patches and updates for your devices. What's the timeline on that?
This year.
Okay.
Yeah, like within the next 3 months, 2 months. We're working on it right now. The goal being you can view the patch status across all of your devices at a glance. You can enforce a certain policy. All the devices must be updated on a 2-week delay. And you want them always updated on Fridays during this time window. And, there will be some type of way that a end user can delay a patch, that kind of stuff. Patch management's really important to IT. So yeah, we're working really hard on that. Should have it this year.
All right, awesome.
And with the patch management, is that just going to be OS level patches and the standard Microsoft stuff, or will it be Adobe and whatever random crap somebody might actually install into their system?
Yeah, we're going to start with OS level patches for, again, cross-platform. And then we're going to go after third-party patches after that, which we'll do likely through some type of app store, probably like, chocolatey and something like that.
Fair enough. Okay. Again, any new people? Anton Polishchuk. Curious.
Mr. Eli, can I go again? I have one last question.
Sure.
Mr. Eli, Mr. Jacob, as two IT veterans who are in the industry, I would like to ask you, what is your opinion? Can you start a remote company? How important is to be in office? How important is to shake hand with every single one of your employees? And how security is to outsource, for example, backend to some Indian guy? Is that wise?
Sure. I know a lot of our, I've met everyone on our team. Some of them I haven't met in person, but for the most part, I have met everyone on our team in person and shaken their hands. And that's mainly because I've worked with them for several years. Outside of that, we rely on contracts and word of mouth agreements with people as much as we, can. Being an employee, there's a level of trust associated with that. We restrict access as much as we can. So like, obviously a new engineer is not going to have access to all the code, only the code that they need to do their job. And they're not going to have access to the servers because they don't need that to do their job. All of the code's automatically deployed in a rolling release cycle. So we just restrict access to only what they need. We have contracts to protect our intellectual property and theft. And then, we try to have an understanding of each employee with, what's expected and what we allow and don't allow. We haven't been bitten yet, but it could happen.
I think from what I've heard from a lot of the employers is I think it comes down to the quality of your employees and if you know what your employees are doing. So I think that's the thing, like when you're dealing with $100,000 a year employees where you're pretty sure you know what the product is supposed to be, right? Like within 10%. That might be a little slower, that might be a little faster, but you know what's supposed to happen. That's pretty easy to do remotely. Where the question, the hard part is when you're dealing with $15 an hour employees doing customer service or doing that kind of like cog work. I think that's where a lot of this kind of stuff breaks down if you don't actually have people in an office and you can actually see what the hell they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it would be very easy for us to know if a developer wasn't working, right? We have daily stand-ups. It would get really awkward if they weren't committing any code. other people are waiting on that code to review it. So we would know very quickly.
Do you use like any kind of management software like Office 365? They came out with this whole package so you could actually see how much time people were using Word and how long they were in email. And I actually thought that was a good idea. Apparently I'm wrong. Have you thought about do you have any of that kind of thing? Do you have any kind of systems at all that even vaguely give you an outline of what your employees are doing?
I mean, GitHub does to a degree, right? Like I can see when you commit code, when you worked on that code. I can see when a pull request was created, but we don't monitor any of the employees' activity. And that it's hard to do with senior level engineers because a lot of it is like thought. It's like I'm architecting a solution to a problem. I could be drawing on paper or refactoring code. It's really difficult to, time box some of those things. Yeah.
And I guess it also depends, like when you're talking about this kind of stuff, again, like what types of employees you have. Like you have theoretically, unlimited vacation time, unlimited sick time. So if they want to take the day off, they can just tell you. They don't have to sneak around and do some kind of weird stuff. They just say, I'm taking the day off, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what I want. Like, I don't want them, we also have flexible schedules. So like, I don't expect them to be there during this set window. Like if they want to work 8 hours and they want to do it all at night, as long as they're at meetings, I don't really care. Like if they have to run to the doctor's office or, to pick up their kids from school, it doesn't matter to me as long as the work is getting done.
Now, curiously, as a manager, have you run into the opposite problem with remote workers? Because remote work was supposed to take over the world a decade ago. I remember going to Interrupt and all these things. All this software has worked for at least 10 years, completely stable for 10 years. And the idea was everybody's going to be doing remote work by 2013. And they ran into weird problems, like counterintuitive problems, like where they were actually having employees burn out because they never knew when the hell to log. Like they would just never log. Like people, they don't have a spouse. They don't go to church. They don't have a family life. They don't have a social life. So they wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning and they work till 9 because they literally have nothing better to do with their lives. Do you run into any of that kind of issue? Or can you foresee that with your company, with people just burning out or doing too much actually?
I've had the opposite problem. I've had people not doing enough work remotely and we've, had to, let people go because of that. But, right now, I'm just grateful for all the work that that they want to give me because we need, as many hands on deck and as many hours as we can get. But I think work-life balance is really important. And if I saw any of my team working, at 3 a.m. or something, I would be a little concerned about that.
All right, and the new people that'll come out. Oops, Joshua again.
Yeah, I have another question, and this is dealing with the like what you were talking about with work-life balance and all that stuff. Have you implemented some form of like DevOps or scaled agile framework within your company for your employees? As far as I heard you say Scrum or like daily stand-ups, but I've worked in positions where we've had to certify in that. And then, so is that something that I guess you implement to help roll out code, in a efficient, that's basically what the whole purpose of it is, to scale down the amount of people to roll out as much code as possible and as quickly as possible. So have you done that or looked into that? I don't know.
Yeah, we're not running like a strict Scrum cycle, but we follow modern agile principles. We pretty much mimic Basecamp. Like we do pitches and then those pitches turn into RFCs that our developers will write about how they plan to implement a feature. Then everyone signs off on that and the developer works on it. They work in a feature branch. As they finish that feature, they do a pull request to develop, which is our like staging area. And that PR has to be reviewed and automated code checks are ran across that. And once that PR is approved, our deployment system automatically deploys that to our staging environment. And since we have not just a front end and a back end, we have an agent piece. We wait for all of the agent devices to update as well. And then we do another PR into master after that.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, and that was following, or that was going into my follow-up question, which is automation, or you guys implementing, automation. So you kind of answered that. So that's all the questions I got. I appreciate it, man. If you want to, I guess, answer it, you can. But thank you, Eli. I'm gonna hop off. I'm gonna catch the next one, and it's good to talk to you guys. Y'all have a good one.
Yeah, all of our stuff is automatically deployed. That's really important, especially when it goes into rolling something out to production. I don't want any engineer like forgetting to run a command and a migration not going. So yeah, everything is automated. It's one of our rules. So yeah.
Okay, Curious Noob has a hand up. What's going on, Curious Noob?
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Of course, I come from the noob side. Part of my ignorance. I was just wondering. I saw a clip of a guy explaining that essentially that virus protection on your phone can essentially do more damage than good by making some converging information. And I'm a noob. I tried Azure and Level IO, and I was wondering if for somebody who's learning, is it a good or is it maybe a bad idea to try this like Azure services or Level IO if you don't know nothing about it? If I install it, am I maybe creating a problem?
I would say Level is for IT professionals. So I would probably strongly caution you against installing it on devices. It's a technical tool for sure that allows you to like edit the registry, and you can get into a lot of trouble by doing a lot of those activities. We're definitely not an AV product, so I don't have much to say there. Azure is a great cloud. I don't think there's any reason that you couldn't use Azure, but you could probably start smaller. You could just get like a, go to like GoDaddy or something and get a hosted website, depending on what you're trying to do with Azure, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things. That's why you always you build your own computer lab, because yeah, that's the thing. Is it's not really AV or Level or anything else. It's just if you don't know what you're doing, you can screw up your system. Like when I was a teenager, I was trying to learn DOS and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And yeah, so I went onto my stepfather's computer and I was trying to clean it up. And so I did DEL space star because there were so many stars. Yeah, he was unamused. So yeah, that's why you go out, you get a lab computer, just grab some crappy computer nobody cares about, install whatever operating system, play on that, and then when you think you know what you're doing, actually put it on a system that you care about.
Yep. I like to play around with ransomware and viruses, and I would never do that on any of my systems. So I would definitely start in some type of virtual environment, preferably an isolated environment where it can't jump across to a VLAN or something.
All right. Thanks for the answer. Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay, no problem. So we're getting close to the end, one way or the other. Let's take this about 2 hours. Anybody else got some questions? We still have some new people that came on.
Would it be all right if I ask the question?
Sure.
Don, yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. This question is for Jacob Haug. So I heard you say that you don't advertise on Indeed.com anymore. Maybe I missed it, but which sites do you advertise on? I'm asking in order to maybe find some other avenues for looking for job advertisements.
Sure. We work remotely. We advertise there because lots of people looking for remote jobs go there.
Okay.
LinkedIn, we advertised there. That didn't work out as well as we would have liked. And then a bunch of like niche job boards geared toward the specific programming language that we're hiring for.
Okay. And my second question is, if you were getting into tech right now, which pathway would you go toward?
I would probably go toward like servers. I love servers. I love Linux. So I would probably go down that direction because it's what I enjoy.
Okay. And are there any like IT communities right now in Discord, a few Discord communities and some subreddits, but outside of that, I haven't found any real like larger IT communities where people connect. Oh, also meetups, like in real life meetups. But other than those, do you know of any different communities, website based or whatnot?
Not off the top of my head. Eli, do you know any?
No, I don't deal with a lot of the communities and such anymore. I go to the local meetups and literally reach out to people like you. So this is what I do now.
Oh, okay. Cool.
I mean, that's one thing to think about. For some reason, it's gone out of fashion, but we used to get taught about this in high school. It's called the informational interview. And basically go to companies that you're interested in and literally ask to see if you can talk to the HR people. Not as a job interview, just to say, hey, I'm interested in your company. Can I just come in and take about half an hour to learn what you people are up to? And that can be a very good way to understand what's going on in your area and see what people are actually hiring for, especially now that people do Zoom. I mean, saying like, hey, can you jump on a Zoom call for 20 minutes? That's a pretty easy sell.
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea. Thank you. Okay, thank you guys.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm here.
Jacob, yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Cool.
All right, bye.
So with Don, you said servers, but again, in the tech world, there's the word and what that actually means. Do you actually mean command line MCSE stuff, or are you talking about like Python and Ansible and Puppet and Chef and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I'm talking about like infrastructure as code, automating infrastructure. So like Puppet, Salt, Ansible, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, okay. And so that's one thing for everybody at home to listen to what he says, because unfortunately people hear what they want to hear. So Jacob says servers, and then everybody starts calling me a moron because I tell you to learn to code. And it's like, but how Jacob is talking about administering servers has much more to do with coding than it does right click, left click, that type of deal. Yeah.
Yep, it's consistency, right? Like if one of our servers went down, I would not run commands manually to set it up. We have our infrastructure is codified, so it's represented in code. We can spin it up at Azure or AWS or anywhere.
Okay. Actually, I just remembered another question I had. How did you mainly learn the skills that you have? Was it mainly through going to some trade type of pathway, or through college, or just on your own?
Yeah, mostly on my own with like, hobby projects. And then I started doing a bunch of freelancing. And then I got, real world experience when I was at Apple, where we're managing hundreds of thousands of servers. So you learn very quickly how to do things at scale.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So we got a few more minutes. AV just popped on. Do you want to ask a question? Somebody else want to unmute themselves and ask something? Okay, it's all quiet.
Hey, Eli, sorry, I've been having some trouble getting off mute. Jacob, I guess the question is, how much do you get stuck into the tech side of stuff now that you're the CEO, or do you find most of your time is occupied by, managing the company, recruiting, marketing, all of that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, right now, 100% of my time is spent on our product, every day, talking to customers. Our VP of engineering spends 1 day a week on marketing and advertising. Like, we're a startup, so everybody's doing 10, 15 different jobs, but I'm more tech focused than marketing or sales for sure.
Was awesome. Do you sort of miss the days of being stuck in, doing the day-to-day tech stuff, or do you sort of enjoy, obviously building your startup and being stuck in the middle of being a CEO?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's just a new title. It's the same job I've been doing for the last 15 years. Like I'm a product person. Everywhere I've worked, we've been building products or applications for whether it's for Apple or that company or other companies. Now I'm just getting to build my own product. Where I'm more anxious and nervous is when it comes to sales and marketing, which are also a part of my job as the CEO, but it's still a very minimal amount of time.
Awesome. Brilliant. Thank you. One last question from me, if I can hog a bit more time. You mentioned sort of working, with security services in the US on security stuff. What does that sort of field look like in terms of, career progress for someone looking to go down it? Is there sort of opportunity? And I guess fundamentally, is there a lot of money in it too, for someone looking to really grow their career or enter that field?
I'll be incredibly honest with you here. Working for the government directly as an employee is probably the lowest compensation that you could get in the cybersecurity field. So people that are information specialists for the FBI generally make 60 to 80,000 tops max. Whereas if you were to go in the private sector and work in cybersecurity, you're going to easily be looking at 130 to 160, kind of at like your mid-level. So most people consult with the FBI so they can get paid, 150 an hour rather than working as an employee and not getting paid that well. So I would encourage you to work as a consultant or an advisor if you wanted to go down the government route. Otherwise, the private sector pays very well in cybersecurity.
Thanks, Jacob. Yeah, consulting is, essentially doing the same job for more money.
Right.
Always a great idea. Thanks.
Cool. Joshua, you unmuted yourself. What's your question? Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can you guys hear me?
Mhm.
Okay. So yeah, sorry. This question just popped up and I had to come back up and ask. So because you brought up Ansible, Puppet, and a lot of these server tools that are out there, infrastructure as a code and all that. So how do you recommend people get experience using these applications? Now, I kind of already know the answer, but I wanted to ask it, especially for the guy that asked the question about, getting into the field and where they should start or whatever. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think one of the best ways is to start with automating a problem that you have in terms of learning Ansible or Chef or Puppet or any of the automation tools. So it's like, if you are a Mac user or a Windows user or a Linux user, try to figure out how you can write code to set up your computer. And that's a good first step. And it's really handy. Next time you buy a new computer, you can just run this, Ansible play and it will completely provision your computer. The other way you could get into this would be like having a lab or purchasing virtual machines from like AWS or Vultr or DigitalOcean. But you need servers to play around with. So either you have a bunch of old computers that you turn into Linux computers, or you can rent servers from DigitalOcean for $5 a month. But you need servers in order to have infrastructure as code.
Exactly. I agree with you 100%. Yeah, that's one of the things I talk about all the time. Like Proxmox, set up a whole, virtual environment at the house on a system. And never mind. I mean, this is about you. I don't want to go into all the stuff.
No, I
know,
agree.
But you're spot on with that. I appreciate it. And that's, like I said, it's for people that may be listening. That's why I asked that question. So
yeah, thanks.
Okay, so last question or two, since we're right about 4 o'clock. Anybody else have any questions? If not, we will wrap this all up.
I got a last new question.
Yeah, okay.
Um, this is super new. I'm ashamed of asking this, but I heard you, Eli, mention some virus protection that is not McAfee and is not as painful as Norton. Um, Anything, I'll take anything that's just manageable. They sounded like the extremes, on the bad end of bad. Do you have any suggestion? I'll take anything. I'm a noob. So just anything that is not McAfee, if
Are
that
we
makes
talking
sense.
about on Windows or
Yes, yes,
yeah?
Windows 10.
I'm,
Very noobish. If
there's a
nobody wants
lot.
to
Yeah.
answer, we can go on.
Yeah, I hesitate to recommend any particular provider, but Avast, AVG,
Because
I mean,
I
there's
understand,
hundreds.
I might add, I understand that everything has its limitations. I'm just wondering, like, general, that would work for the majority of the people. Something simple that gives something, or is it? Yeah, anything. Yeah,
Eli, do
I'll
you
take
have
anything.
suggestions?
Yeah. No, yeah, I think that's it. When you get into antivirus, I mean, getting into antivirus arguments is just the most horrible thing in the world. So if you don't know, for personal use, I think both AVG and Avast are free. And then beyond that, there's 50 different ones out there. It depends on what you want. Just don't use Clam. Clam is free.
That's
Don't
all.
use Clam.
Yeah,
That's all
don't
I
use
need.
Clam. Yeah.
Yeah. I always like that. It's
That's
like,
all I need. Thanks for answering.
yeah, no
Thanks.
problem. No problem. Yep. Okay, so that was that. Any last one? Any final person?
Looks like AK has his hand up.
Oh, AK, is your hand up? Sometimes I forget that their hands up.
Yeah, the last question.
Okay. Yep.
So as I can understand, you have so much experience in handling senior developers there. So, and also you are willing to pay such high amount of salary to the senior developers, and you are not getting one. So there could be alternate solution where you are hiring 2 or 3 less experienced developers at a very less salary, giving them 2 or 3 months time, and observing whether they are able to adapt to your requirements and your skill sets or not. So what are the challenges in this second solution?
Sure. I think we're a little bit of an edge case. Hiring, like, first off, we're going after the senior developer, but likely I think that senior person is going to take 6 to 8 months to be able to really add value to level. What they're doing is there's no real documentation for streaming secure desktops in Windows or accessing, low-level Windows APIs. It requires a very unique type of senior engineer, because half the time they're having to write low-level C to do what we need to do, right? It's like streaming the login screen is not as simple as you think. And it gets even more complicated when you're trying to inject keyboard events so that as they type their password, you're sending that across the screen and injecting that. So it's just a really high-level developer that is very hard to find. I would estimate that there's probably 300 to 500 people in the world or US that are able to do this job. So I anticipate it probably taking a year, 6 months to a year for us to find this person, and then another 6 months to a year before they add value. So we're starting before we need that person.
Thanks for the insight.
Yeah, in the past, I did take that route. I love hiring junior people and mentoring them. That way, I can teach them the way that we want to operate and do things. It's just for these roles, I need someone that can handle architecting solutions independently. And that's where those lower level developers don't have the capabilities of really architecting a solution independently.
Well, thanks for the insight.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing. Like, a lot of people talk about like jumping jobs like every year, every couple of years. So you're saying for a senior level developer, it still can take them up to 8. So this is somebody with 10 years experience, and it still might take them 8 months before they're actually productive with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is painful. Okay,
Very
so
painful.
since it's 4 o'clock, we'll just wrap this up. So I have one final question, since everybody keeps asking about cybersecurity. Again, that's the cool, sexy thing. There's a lot of cybersecurity college programs out there. So a lot of people want to go to college. Would you recommend a cybersecurity program or a normal computer science program? And how do they know if it's a crap? Like, one of the problems I run into is a lot of people going to cybersecurity programs. They're kind of garbage, like all the way around. Not only are they not good in cybersecurity, they're also just not good in tech. Like, do you have any advice for again, that kind of education into cybersecurity?
Yeah, so I sit on the board of a couple colleges, which will remain anonymous for this call. And I wouldn't recommend either of them in terms of getting that cybersecurity education. It's just not the best. The one college that I think stands out to me would be Western Governors University, and that's primarily because they pair that bachelor's degree or master's degree with industry certifications. So when you come out, you have a bachelor's degree, plus you have your CCNA, certified ethical hacker, certified information system security professional. You have some of these industry certs. So because I don't want to say I view the degree as worthless. I don't. There's something to be said for being able to sit through 4 years of curriculum and finish it without giving up. That's an attribute I like, but I would prefer industry certifications or real world experience. So WGU would be my closest recommendation, but you could also just go and get the certifications that are offered in that program, and that would likely get you started.
Really? So it's interesting because WGU has come up a bit from people asking me. So do you respect WGU? Is that actually honestly, is that a decent program?
Yeah, I mean, I do respect that it comes out with industry certifications. And I think that's the only thing that gives it an air of credibility. It is DoD recognized. It's recognized by Apple. It's recognized by, Bill Gates funded it. There's a lot of support there. I'm not saying their program is amazing. I'm just saying what I personally tend to value is industry certifications and experience. So the faster you can get real certifications or experience, the faster you're going to be able to get a job and actually learn cybersecurity.
Fair enough. So since we've had you here a little over 2 hours, we'll give you your final bit. What's your last pitch for Level IO before everybody leaves? Your last best sales pitch for using Level.
Yeah, my last little sales pitch is our mission here at Level is to make it as easy to manage 1,000 devices as it is a single device. So check it out, just play with it. It's a free trial. But we're geared toward businesses. So if you run an IT department or need a tool to manage all of your devices, I think we'd be an excellent fit. We're priced competitively. Yeah, give it a shot. See for yourself.
Cool. Well, thank you for being here today. You stay on the line. I'll kick everybody else off in a second. This was another Tech Office Hours. Again, I'm trying to bring in other people so you can hear from them what they have to say. Again, I don't pull all this crap out of my ass. I talk with people like Jacob. Then I come tell you, and then you tell me I'm arrogant. So now I'm bringing Jacob on so he can tell you. It makes everything easier. So on Thursday, we're going to have another office hours where it's just me asking me questions. And then next Tuesday, we have a guy, Tomer, who is an actual digital nomad. He was literally traveling all around the world, India, that type of thing, doing coding, getting paid to sit on the beach. So we're going to have him on next week. Make sure to join the meetup down below. There's a link for the meetup. Again, I'm trying to get everybody to go through the meetup to make this whole process a hell of a lot easier. So think about joining the meetup and then RSVP for any of the Tech Office Hours. And thanks for being here, Jacob. I think this was a good time.
Yeah, no problem.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
Yep. See y'all I'm gonna kick you all out of here. Nope, not that.